Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's video we are going to talk about the second hook that is named as UseEffect. UseEffect hook is actually used for fetching data or any other activity which you could be called as a side effect in React. Let's say your component needs some data from some API or certain database, so you could use that UseEffect to get that. The UseEffect hook is technically equivalent to the ComponentDidMount, which is a kind of a function used within the class-based components that could be used to do the initial task. And we can also use the useState hook also to set the data into the local state of the component. So that's what we could use. So we'll use both the stuff. One is the UseEffect as well as the useState. So that's enough kind of knowing about the UseEffect. Let's see how we could practically use the UseEffect hook to get the data and then render it on the page. We'll use a JSON API, which I'll also post the link within the description to fetch some information about the users. It's a kind of a fake data that could be used, so we'll be using that. So stay tuned and I'll show you practically how we could use UseEffect to call the data from some API and then render it on the React component. So we'll create this component named as call API, and I've just set up some dev class name container. I'm using the bootstrap and this is calling API demo, nothing else beyond that. So let's start using this component to build our stuff. How we are going to use it and how we are going to use the UseEffect. Now fundamentally the first thing what we need to do is, so we need to import the UseEffect also, because we technically need that UseEffect to actually call that API or use that function to do the initial task. And because I'm gonna call an API, so I'm gonna use the Axios also within my React component. And if the Axios is not installed, so you could install it with the help of npm install Axios package with -- save option, so that it gets installed locally. Now the first thing what you could do here is, so let's try use the UseEffect. So we'll say UseEffect, and then this is the function, use the fat arrow, and then let's try that over here. And if I show you, there is an API which is there. This is the JSON placeholder. I've used this API even in the demonstration of the nodejs stuff. So I'm still using the same one. I'll post a link for this description. So if you call this API, this actually returns you an array of objects. If you see this array of objects, every object has an ID, a name, and a username. So we could capture any of the key or any kind of a property, but we'll try to use the ID and name. So let's see firstly, can we actually get this or not? So that's more important. So what we'll do is we'll say axios dot get, and then I'll pass on that API, and it returns a promise to me, and I can use a response. And then fundamentally, let's firstly see if we are able to get that or not. So we'll say response from API, and then we'll just simply say response dot data. Now if we try to get this, because I'm not exactly kind of rendering that onto the component, so let's see whether this could actually call the API and then get the data. Now this is a call API component. I'm gonna use it on the main component called as app.js. So I'll just use the call API, and that's my component being invoked in the main component. And if you see, I've already imported that import call API as a component within the main component. Now let's try run this application npm start, and if we see that when it starts off and it actually shows around So there's a calling of this API demo because that was is only there. And let's see if in the inspect can we see that. So in the console, if we see, so there is an array and we get all the data 0, 1, 2, 3 and 9 till, and you have all the details for that. It's an object technically, an object of 10 objects within the form of an array. So we'll use the ID, name and other property to actually render that data out here. So one of the things what we need to do here is, so we'll go back to the call API. So we'll use const, we'll say data, and then we'll say set data, and it is use state, and it is in the form of an array. I'm just initializing an empty array, nothing else. So we are using the use state also. Now once that is done, so because we have already seen that, so I'm just gonna use set data, and then I'm gonna pass that response dot data out here. So I'm actually storing the state with the response.data, that is 10 objects with some details which we are going to capture. So that looks fine. So the data is stored in the local state. Now the last thing what we need to do here is to actually render those data out here in the form of a table or anything. Now what we'll do here is, so if you see we have an ID, name and a username property. So we'll access three things: ID, name and username. Now I'm gonna use the tables like a ready-made template within the Bootstrap because I'm already using Bootstrap within my React component. So I'll just copy that and go over here and paste it at this place. Now this is the stuff that we are going to use here within the div. So I'm just gonna set it around, and then within the table, so I just need an ID, which would be this one, and then the name, and then the username. That's what I'm gonna use. So I don't need the fourth column, so that's what it is gone. Okay, and within the table body we are going to write some React code to actually get it in the form of a like a code which could be kind of a client-side scripting. So how we are going to do this within this, I'm going to actually use this because my data is actually captured within this data variable or a state variable. So I'll just use, and it is in the form of an array. So we have already known that it is in the form of array. So I could use the map property, and I'll say an item and an index, which is there, and I'll use the fat arrow notation to do that. And then what I need to do here is I just need to use a return because I need to build up a tr td tags with the help of a loop. So I'm just going to return back that HTML. So I'll say tr, and then key is equal to, I'll just pass on index, and then within the tr I'll say td, and then td item dot. So what you are going to display, one is ID, the second one we are going to display is the name, and the third one is going to be item dot username. So that's my third thing, and that's all. That's what would be needed. So if all goes well, I think so, if I go back, it would actually start displaying the data. So this was the data which is there. We are capturing ID, name and username. So let's close this, and if you see, there is a table and we have all the 10 records with the name and with the username. So this is how you could actually use your UseEffect to actually get the data. So the UseEffect is actually being used here to kind of call an API, get the data, and we also console.logged so that we could see what we are getting, and then we are actually storing that data, what was the response from that API in the actual state variable with the help of useState. So that's what we are setting. And then finally we are just creating a table. We copied the table structure of a Bootstrap, and within the table body we just created a simple logic to display those because it is in the form of an array. So we copied that data dot map, and then we went through item, index, and then finally displayed all those properties what we really wanted. So I hope guys this is going to be helpful to you. You could this API I've just used as a fake API. You could use an API that's actually getting data from your database, from NoSQL, from cloud databases or anywhere, and then you could render your stuff over here. So I hope guys this is gonna be helpful to you. If you already know about it, well and good. If you don't know, yes, this is the way you could use it to initialize your stuff, to initialize your data, to get your data and put it onto your component. So stay tuned guys, I'll be coming up with more videos, and if you have not already subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe it. And I wish you all the best wherever you are. Please stay safe and thank you.